Good morning, everybody. It's Graham once again from Unearthed and another episode of Detecting Tales. This one will be probably a light bulb moment for a lot of people, in so much as it's happened to them, they can relate to it, and if not, I'm sure you'll have quite a laugh at this particular tale. So let's get right into it. Going back in time again, folks, 1990s, early 1990s, when detecting again really gripped our imagination and became more of an obsession than a hobby, actually. Three detectorists, myself and my two friends, organised a midweek detecting adventure after gaining some permission on the north-west coast of Cumbria, which held, in our minds, a lot of promise. So we decided to take a day off work. Now, taking a day off work in them days was something to behold, because we were only ever given 2 weeks a year holiday. We were pretty much trapped like slaves, working 6 days a week. Believe me, we were. And it's a far cry from nowadays, folks, I tell you. So we actually all took a Wednesday off and decided to go up midweek. And the reason why is because the sun was continuously shining. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. A lovely, beautiful, in fact, August day, because I can remember it being August. And we had a choice of whether to go down, up the M6 north and then cut across Cumbria west, or take the coastal route A595, which was a coastal route that took us through, I should say, villages and towns such as Bootle, Egremont, the wonderful Whitehaven, Workington and beyond. So we decided to take the coastal route, and the reason being because it was such a beautiful day, and there's some, believe it or not, some rather nice scenic places up there to look at, including the harbours and the west coast and the Irish Sea and everything else. So what a fantastic day. We all got organised at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was driving my Ford Sierra 1.6L B-Reg, which was like a beige colour, like a jelly mould shape hatchback, but we were able to get a lot of detecting gear in it. So I picked my two friends up and myself. 7 o'clock in the morning, we set off in a rush to get to the farm. A 2-hour drive, we thought, and it pretty much was. And about halfway along the A595, the coastal route, we heard an alarm going off. Now, we've got to remember, in them days, folks, cars didn't have alarms like we do nowadays, so we actually thought it was a police car or an ambulance somewhere in the distance, so we actually slowed down a little bit. As we slowed down, the alarm slowed down too, but it didn't get any quieter, which was a bit odd. So we carried on, no electric windows, wind the window down with a handle, fresh air coming in the car. The whirring noise became louder as I put my foot down in the car, and then the penny dropped. The noise was actually coming from the car itself. It turned out to be a prop shaft joint of some sort, the prop shaft underneath the car that drives the axle from the power at the front, if that makes sense. One of their couplings had developed a strange whirring noise, and believe me, it was that loud. As you drove past people on the streets, they would all stand there looking. I couldn't fix the fault. You could douse it in WD-40 or oil or whatever it was, and it still wouldn't fix it. And as being a mechanic at the time, or a pretend mechanic I classed myself as, because I absolutely hated the job, I never really bothered about fixing it or replacing the shaft coupling. I just continued to drive it with this whirring noise on it. It was rather bizarre, but everywhere we went, you could see people stopping and staring because of this whirring alarm noise coming from the prop shaft. And it started on that A595 and never stopped after that. I actually sold the car with a whirring noise added. Anyway, so we're driving up and this whirring noise is going, woo, 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 just like that. Weirdest noise you've ever heard. Rather embarrassing. However, it got a lot more embarrassing. Believe me. We actually got to the destination around about 9 o'clock, so it took us 2 hours to get there. And I remember the farm. We'd been at the farm previously a few months earlier to get permission. The farmer said it was fine, just come back when you're ready. And of course, with it being summer at the time, we couldn't get on because the grass was too long, the ground was too hard, or the crops were in the field. So it was August time. We thought everything would have been cut as it was, and we got to the farm in question. It was near a caravan site. So I pulled up in the farm and I thought, this doesn't look familiar, but the caravan site's there, the farm's there, let's have a go. I knocked on the door and it was a different farmer, and he said, you haven't got permission. Here's son, it's a different farm you're looking for. So then we had to drive around looking for the farm in question, which was rather amateurish. It took us half an hour, 3/4 of an hour to get our bearings, because it's a new area for us. Cumbria is a big county, believe me. It's one of the biggest counties in the country. So even though we're born and bred here, we don't know every inch of it. So we took us 3/4 of an hour to find the correct farm, and we finally did. Now you've got to remember, we're pushing on for 10 o'clock. Gets to the farm, excuse me, gets to the farm, not a car in sight. The farm isn't derelict or anything like that, but there's just no one home. Knocked on the door, no answer. What are we going to do? We had a debate between the three of us, and we decided to sit it out and wait for the farmer to arrive. The farmer did arrive eventually, around about lunchtime for his lunch. So we had to wait another couple of hours. Sat there twiddling our thumbs in the farm courtyard. Now you've got to remember, this is before mobile phones, so there was no picking a phone up or texting the farmer or anything like that. It was all done verbally in them days, so we had to wait a couple of hours. We were getting rather frustrated and we were getting rather hot. As the heat levels rose, I realised that I hadn't brought any refreshments with me. I forgot me water. I forgot me pack up. So I had no food and no drink. The other two had food and drink, and they were happy to share it with me. What an amateurish thing to do. However, it gets worse. The farmer came in, jumped out of his pickup or his motor at the time. I jumped out quickly and introduced myself. He remembered me, and his words were, you should have just gone on. No point in waiting for me, lads. Get on. I thought, oh, God, all that time we've been waiting for 2 hours, we could have just started detecting. However, we didn't know, we didn't want to spoil anything. So we got our gear ready. He told us where to park. He told us the fields available. We went to park in the entrance of one of the fields we were detecting on. Boot up, claws, detectors, spades, everything coming out the back, as you can imagine. But there was something wrong. One of the friends had forgot his detector. So three of us using 2 detectors. So the plan was for me to walk around with him while he detected, and I'd dig his signals for him with his spade, and then every hour we'd swap around. So I would detect and he'd do the same. Les, who was with us at the time, good old Les, God bless his soul, he decided to go on the next field away from the Chuckle brothers, me and Sean, and disappeared off into a field detecting away quite happily. So it worked. I walked around with a spade over my shoulder while Sean detected, and then an hour later I'd detect and he'd have the spade over his shoulder and I'd dig a few signals. Not a great deal was coming up. After about an hour and a half, 2 hours in, so you're talking mid-afternoon, Les came through the farm gate into our field with a broken spade. The ground was that hard his spade had give up and it snapped in 2. Luckily, I brought my spare spade, and there was a spare spade in the boot because I couldn't detect, so I gave him my spade and off he went detecting. Here's where it gets interesting. 4 o'clock came, we hadn't found a single coin between us, a few buttons and pieces of lead. It transpired that there had been multiple detectorists over them fields in the past. It wasn't virgin land by any means. There wasn't a great deal coming up, and we decided to call the whole embarrassing day, call it to an end, if that's the right word. So we jumped back in the car. The first thing I needed to do was get some refreshments because I was absolutely parched. As you can imagine, even though you're young and fit in them days, I was still gasping for a drink. So I needed to find a local shop. We couldn't find any local shops at all. We finally found like a spa type shop on a road out of that particular area, heading towards work in Whitehaven, that we pulled up to jump out to get some drink. Checking the pockets, I had no money. So I brought no money. I brought no refreshments. My friend didn't bring his detector. My other friend broke his spade, and I had no money to buy refreshments. I drove home that day wanting to drink the water out of the water bottle in the car, out of the water tank. I was that thirsty. I would have emptied that if I could have. I would have emptied the radiator, even though it was full of probably all sorts of weird and wonderful things, including antifreeze. I would have still drank it. I was that thirsty. We didn't think about going back to the farm and topping our water bottles up that the lads had brought. No, that was too much to think about, was that. So it was an absolutely embarrassing cock up right from the start. However, here's where it gets really interesting. The next episode of Detecting Tales it includes myself and a couple more of these gentlemen in question, is even more of a cock-up. So make sure you tune in next week to watch this one. Bye for now.